Well, Uber is now in hot water once again after the ride-sharing app covered up a data breach, in fact, for more than a year. Uber is accused of paying hackers $100,000 to cover up the data leak, which took place last October in 2016. Here's the background.
When you switch on your phone and click on the Uber app, the last thing on your mind is that your data may get compromised. But 57 million Uber customers around the world have had their data breached, including their names, email addresses, and phone numbers. The personal information of around 7 million drivers was also stolen. That included 600,000 US drivers' license numbers. Uber said no social security numbers, credit details, or trip locations were stolen in the data leak. But what's interesting is the breach took place in October 2016, more than a year ago, and Uber apparently kept it under wraps by paying $100,000 to the hackers. Uber paid off the hackers to delete the data and be quiet about the breach. Uber said it needed to be honest and transparent to repair their mistakes.
All these data are given by an individual from a personal level and having confidence in a particular company. But if these things are breached, it is not very healthy.
We travel only by cabs and we share our personal information like a phone number with the company. And tomorrow going on, if somebody uses our personal information, my phone number, my name, it's not cool at all. These days it should not happen. We hesitate sharing our number with the people we know. And imagine your information is going somewhere else. It's quite a breach of data. It's confidentiality information issue. It should not happen.
In recent years, hackers have targeted many companies like MySpace, Yahoo, Target, and Equifax. But when it comes to data privacy, it's surprising that people are up in arms about the Aadhaar card, but are okay giving personal information to apps like Facebook, Gmail, and Uber. As a result of this latest cover-up, Uber has fired 2 employees in connection to the case. The latest incident comes in a string of incidents for Uber, which recently faced backlash in London over safety concerns and sexual harassment allegations.
I use Uber, always. Because, they are available on the phone. I can, quickly check how soon they'll be here, and then it makes my life so easy, not waiting for the bus, whether it's raining or snowing or whatever. Just get a cab and they'll reach wherever you need them to. So it's going to make my life very difficult.
I've known friends that have got into altercations with them, been beaten up, things like that. I know it's not good, but it's good for the convenience, but I guess sometimes there is safety concerns.
Uber plans to provide its drivers whose licenses were stolen with free credit monitoring and identity theft protection. As Uber tests out new tools like Uber Air, it now faces the test of customer satisfaction. Many in the United States are boycotting the ride-sharing app and going to other competitors like Lyft. Uber says individual riders don't need to take any action. Bureau Report, WION.
All right, joining us on this discussion tonight on Your Story, we have a range of experts and our correspondent. First up, we have Pernille Tranberg, a cyber expert from Denmark. We also have Pavan Dugal, a cyber expert from New Delhi. And we have WION's London Bureau Chief, Mandy Clark, standing by in London. We'll get to all of them in just a bit. Let me first start with Pavan. Pavan, let me ask you, when it comes to this, the fact that this was kept under wraps for more than a year, how surprised are you by this Uber, a company that many people around the world rely on and recognize?
Well, I'm not completely surprised because corporates today invariably have a propensity not to go ahead and disclose the various cybersecurity breaches that they take place. But this kind of a cybersecurity breaches with so many millions of people and the data being leaked, and for 1 year the company keeps quiet, I think this is shaking people's confidence. More significantly, it is a wake-up call, not just for consumers and users to be very careful in reading the terms and conditions of the mobile applications to find out what all are they doing in terms of protecting the personal data and cybersecurity. But more significantly, I think it's a wake-up call for countries as a whole. Sovereign nations are under a duty to ensure that the data of their citizens is appropriately protected. And in case breaches like these are happening, it's very clear that countries will now have to come up with very strong mandatory cyber security breach notification laws, which can mandate all service providers and all companies to mandatorily report such cyber security breaches. And if they don't do so, there should be appropriate legal consequences. I will tell you the case in India. In India, in January 2017, the government has mandated that all body corporates who actually suffer from a cyber security breach are mandated to report the same. If they don't report it, it's a crime in India, which is punishable with 1 year's imprisonment and fine. So I think going forward, it has to be a wake-up call, but more significantly, we as users of this digital ubiquitous ecosystem must be now mentally prepared that breaches like these will continue to keep on happening, and the onus is on us as individuals to protect as far as possible our own personal data.
Absolutely. Very interesting points that you've brought up there, Pavan. Let me also bring in Mandy Clark from London. Mandy, we've talked about this, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, about Uber in the past. This is not the first time. In fact, just a few months ago, we talked about the license almost being revoked there. So Uber has been in hot water time and time again. Now with this latest data breach cover-up in the previous time about safety and security after sexual allegations came in terms of drivers. What does this mean for Uber in terms of its brand value? Will this mean that people stop using Uber and perhaps go to other apps or perhaps even taxi cabs?
Every negative story is going to bring a question on whether people should use it. Uber has been perpetually in the news here in the UK. What I can say is they might face even more fines because the Britain's regulatory authority has a £500,000 maximum penalty when it comes to not reporting a data breach to users and regulators. And obviously they waited for an entire year, so they might face penalties in the UK. Now, Uber hasn't said 57 million customers, but they didn't say where in the world that data breach happened. But if it did happen in the UK, then certainly they could face even more fines. That keeps them in the headlines. Negative headlines is a loss of consumer confidence.
Absolutely. Certainly impacting the customers. In fact, in the United States, many of them are now boycotting Uber, trying to go to other apps like Lyft. We'll come back to Pavan and Mandy in just a bit, but we also want to bring in Pernille from Denmark, a cybersecurity expert. Great to have you in the program here. The latest incident certainly impacting Uber's brand value. Your thoughts?
Well, it means that the reputation is going down and that most of us now are realizing that it's not even a taxi company. They branded themselves as a sharing economy. A lot of people realized it was a taxi company, but actually it is not a taxi company. It's a data company. And those of us who have followed Uber closely since the beginning, we know that data is actually the most important commodity for Uber.
Pernille, how can people protect themselves? What are some things that people can do in case they're one of these 57 million people in this latest data breach? Again, we don't know the details about which cities or which countries are impacted, but we do know that it's 57 million people around the world, 600,000 drivers. Some tips.
Well, I would always try and find an alternative to Uber. If there's a taxi company with an app who are more responsible with data, if they have a really cool, understandable privacy policy, I would go for them. But if you had to go for Uber, you really, really want Uber, I would definitely turn off my location every time I'm not using Uber, because if you give them full access to your location through the app, they will gather that data constantly, all data about your location. So turn that off and then give them the very, very minimum as possible of data. Even if you can use a pseudonym, that would be a good idea, and pay in another way than with a credit card, I don't know. But you have to work in a way to give them as few data as possible.
All right, let's talk about this from the broader perspective, not just specifically with Uber, but, in the recent months, we've seen data breaches time and time again. I mean, we are now living in a different world, a digital world. We're always online, Gmail, Facebook, using apps, giving our information online, but that is certainly not stopping hackers from getting that personal data and perhaps using it or disposing it on the dark web. In fact, Equifax, Yahoo, many companies have become victim to cyber attacks. Pernille, let me ask you, How do people stay safe online, not just with Uber or apps, but in the broader scheme of things? Are there some things, perhaps using different aliases or things you shouldn't put online?
Because the other day I wanted to buy a hotel room in Tokyo, and I did that where I blocked the cookies so nobody could follow me and know that I were there for the second time, and I got a really okay price. But then I thought, well, I'll try and change my location and pretend that I'm in Germany, and then I got a price 20% lower. So it's just to tell you that it's not only, ads aimed at you, it's a lot of other stuff. It's also pricing, different prices, and if you want to control your own data, you get more. You can get better prices. So we're seeing economically and politically a manipulation today, and it's not only the exact Uber, but that's a part of the big puzzle about your profile.
All right, Pernille, Mandy, and Pavan Standby, we'll come to you in just a bit, but now let's also talk about specifically the hacking episode and what that entails. And if you are one of those 57 million people whose data was compromised, what you need to do. Of course, all of this was back in October of 2016. 57 million people's data that is now out there for hackers to use and dispose of. 600,000 drivers. Uber has come out and made a statement saying that they will provide identity protection and free credit monitoring for those drivers. But they also say that a lot of confidential information like credit card details, social security, that was not stolen. So you are okay, at least that's what Uber is saying, but here is what you need to do in case you're worried about your personal data.
Uber has admitted that hackers managed to get access to personal information of its customers, such as names, email addresses, and phone numbers during the hack. That is enough to set off alarm bells. This set of personal data is enough for hackers to conduct cyber crimes. For instance, users may receive a lot of spam or ads on their mobile phones. Also, with this set of information, hackers could carry phishing campaigns by creating fake Uber accounts. They can also ask users to confirm their banking details or to click on links that would allow viruses into their devices. Not only this, personal information can also be used to perpetrate identity thefts. While Uber may or may not update you if your account was affected by the hack, we suggest you assume it was compromised. It is better to be safe than sorry. Therefore, you must take a few precautionary measures without any delay. Change your password immediately and don't keep an old password. Be wary of notices and messages from Uber seeking personal information. There is a possibility those might be from hackers and not Uber. Don't fall for tempting discounts, as that could be another attempt by hackers to extract sensitive information. Try using alternative email addresses for these sorts of services and not your main address. While Uber says it is conducting an in-depth investigation, we suggest you do your bit to keep your online world safe and personal details protected. Bureau Report, WION.
All right, let's go back to the discussion with our guests. We have guests from Delhi, London, and Copenhagen in Denmark. Let me go to Mandy Clark first, standing by. Mandy, in terms of people, what they should do in terms of if they're a little concerned about these breaches, it's not just Uber. We've seen in recent months Uber, Equifax, Yahoo, many different firms, unfortunately, dealing with this. So what are some things that perhaps people could do to keep safe from cyber attacks?
And we are seeing lots of data breaches here in the UK, even when it came to TalkTalk. So it's a problem that reaches beyond Uber. Keeping your data safe, a lot of that is phishing. What we've seen is when they get information, it's those phishing attacks. It does require the user to click on something. In fact, the WannaCry virus that infected the entire NHS, which is the National Health Service here, was done because someone in the NHS clicked on an email that they shouldn't have. They hadn't updated their security patches. That's another big thing with your computer. Always make sure your computer has the right security patch. They clicked on it and they got the virus. So it's really avoiding those those phishing emails, which can be very tempting, or insisted that you must click this for whatever security reason, and often that's where people get tripped up.
Absolutely. All right, let me bring in Pavan back into the conversation. Pavan, in terms of what people could do to be safer, if there is a word like that. So, I mean, it is hard. You know, we're all so connected online. We all rely on these things. And as we pointed out in the story, I mean, when you book an Uber or any app, it's the last thing you think about, that your data may be stolen. Perhaps you could share some tips in terms of keeping ourselves safe online from hackers.
I think a big learning from this episode is that we will need to inculcate cybersecurity as a part of our day-to-day lives. The expectation that our data will be kept safe either by the government or by any service provider or any platform is a misplaced expectation. So I think going forward, you need to be very, very careful that you should only be disclosing such amount of data that you think is bare minimum necessary. But even prior to disclosing data, it's imperative that you must at least be aware of how your data is going to be potentially accessed, distributed, and even saved and archived. And that's where the privacy policies become so very important. I think today, when you read the terms and conditions of any app, I will also encourage you to just see through the terms and conditions and find out what specifically cyber security mechanisms, procedures, and processes are being adopted by the said company in respect of your own data. So I think caution, due diligence has to be the mantra. We cannot be complacent. We cannot think that we are insignificant and that nobody in the entire world would be interested in us. We have to be alive to the fact that we are today all data objects. We are all transmitting data, broadcasting data, and generating data at speeds and at frequency that the world has not known earlier. So in this data-driven economy and the data-driven ecosystem as a whole, we must instantaneously realize the value of our data and as far as possible share only such data as will be imperative. But at the end of the day, howsoever brilliant you can be and howsoever cyber secure you can be, there could always be a chance that some hacker or some cyber criminal may potentially want to breach your particular levels of cyber security. But keep on trying and be safe and secure.
Unfortunately, the world that we live in. We also went around the different cities in India to get perspective on how it is being perceived here in South Asia. In fact, in Kolkata, in Bengaluru, in Chennai, and here in New Delhi. Let's listen to some reaction now coming in.
All of us use smartphones, and somehow through Paytm and all digital transaction stuff, our banks are connected to the phones. And if Uber or any agency has those details, and if they get hacked, it's a matter of worry.
My phone has a lot of apps. Like I do online payments, e-banking, so it is a matter of worry.
It is the real concern, one has to face, because all these data are given by an individual from a personal level and having confidence in a particular company. But if these things are breached, it is not very healthy.
I believe data is one of the most important assets, not only for corporates but also for individuals, because loss of data can cause loss of finances, loss of sales, loss of personal information.
And imagine your information is going somewhere else. It's quite a breach of data. It's confidentiality information issue. It should not happen. And I'm not okay with it. I'm sure a lot of people won't be. It's not only about the matter of being a guy or a girl. Person should not be okay with it.
It's really bothering and the situation is very bad. Maybe the cybersecurity or something has to be, by the government of India, has to be set up to monitor this, and people has to be safeguarded from this, because it's really bothering situation for them.
It bothers us so much. It's like, if for normal citizens, like some country like India, even where the government have not put a very big policies for these things, it bothers us so much, like we are being watched by someone.
If the account has been hacked, so that's a big issue, because they must be facing some problem while using our rights, and the data which we have been shared with the Uber, if that is not confidential, then obviously that's a problem for the public.
My Paytm account number, so that's why by which they can hack my Paytm account also, and my mobile number is also there. It can be used by someone. I can get malicious calls from someone else who hacked it. There's a lot of problems you may face.
I feel really bad. Like, it's the worst thing that can happen to a female. Like, as a female, my phone number should be very, no one should know it unless they're related to me or I know them personally. If they get our details, then it's really miserable for us because we will get disturbed and they will text us and send messages, which will be really bad for us.
Some strong measures will be taken to control this leak, and it will not be as widespread because Uber has been in the scene for a long time. I'm sure they have excellent restrictive and protectionist policies. So at first I might be a little agitated, but I still believe that as an international organization, Uber can control this.
My information, where I am going, where I am living, this is totally becoming risky. Like Facebook, through Facebook, people can know when I check in, people can know where I am. Anyone who has enmity with me, he can track me and do harm to me.
All right, let's go back to Denmark, where Pernille is standing by. Pernille, give us some tips with regards to hacking, not just with Uber, but overall things that people can do to be safe.
It's not only cyber attacks, it's also abuse of data from the specific companies, right? So what you can do is that have a principle saying only use your own real name when you are professional online. So if you do anything which is not professional, you could operate with pseudonyms. Then you should use ad blockers and block for the tracking of you between all the websites out there. They share all the data. If you go to a cancer website, hundreds of companies will know you're interested in cancer. And then you should use a VPN to encrypt the communication between your gadget and the Wi-Fi or the server you are on. And then you should only give your data to companies you trust. I would never use Facebook Messenger because they take all the data in your iPhone or in your phone and use that data. I would use something called a Wire, for example, a German app, or Signal, an American app, where they don't abuse data. So you could start looking for privacy tech tools that actually help you control your own data.
All right, and really quickly, let's go to Mandy Clark sitting by in London. Mandy, what about companies like Uber when it comes to data breaches? How much do you think they should be held accountable? We understand the FTC federal agencies are investigating this now, but what onus should they take given that they've really been irresponsible with 57 million people's personal information?
Well, the current CEO admitted that this should never have happened, and he makes no excuses for it. But they absolutely should have owned up immediately because it creates a lot of mistrust between the user and the company. Why was there such that long period of time, that year before they admitted to it? They paid off the hacker for them to delete the data, but they're hackers. They're criminals to begin with. Is there a likelihood that they actually did what they said to get the money? It raised a lot of questions, a lot of mistrust. They will likely face fines in Britain if it's found to be in Britain, and likely other companies around the world that do have high levels of data breach regulators that insist that companies are transparent, so that improves that trust between company and customer.
Absolutely. A wait and watch game to see what happens. Mandy Clark, thank you for your input. Pernille Tranberg as well from Copenhagen, and Pavan Dugal from India as well. We appreciate all of your insights. Unfortunately, that does it for a special report and our discussion tonight here on Your Story. Everyone has a story to share. If you have one to share, let us know on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I'm Archith Seshadri. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Good night.